started
I
here.
don't know.
We do have a forum, and the sign up sheet is going around somewhere. And we have Andy Hamilton was on the screen a minute ago. Maybe he stepped out, but we have Andy here as well.
Oh, I brought one. Thank you.
Yeah, everyone needs a packet. We have one here. Go ahead and get started. First thing we have is the agenda that was sent out. If you have a chance to review that. If there's any changes, please let me know. Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to accept it as published.
So move. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of adopting the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Or also vote aye.
Can you say the names, please?
Kelly made the motion.
Kurt seconded.
And next thing up, we have approval of the meeting minutes from November 16th. Those were sent out the other day as well. Is there any discussion on those?
I have a question, although I wasn't present at the meeting. I noticed under the approvals, it's, as you look down on the agenda, it said Headley made a motion to approve payables as presented. And that's under the employee recognition policy. You go to the MOU, it says Herrera made a motion to approve payables as presented. And that's under the approval of recognition policy. So maybe on those, they could make those minor edits.
Oh, yeah. let's-
All three of them.
Yeah, Carrie, there's
three.
three.
Eight, four,
Yep.
four,
8,
There's
9,
three more.
10.
11.
We'll get those corrected.
If we correct those, I wasn't here, so I can't approve or recommend approval.
Oh,
I didn't notice that.
Rachel, did you follow that?
I did.
Okay. So we can make those adjustments and present those at the next meeting. Then.
We'll do.
Okay. Table that item for now. Next up is public comment. And I didn't see anybody online. Do you have anybody online, Rachel, who qualifies public comment?
I do.
So you do not? Okay, and I don't think there's anybody in the room who's not a member want to comment at this time already. Next up, we have payables in the amount of $756,000, and those were sent out. Is there any questions for staff concerning those? Kurt?
Sheriff, I have a couple of questions. Cowlitz County lease payment of 28,940.62. Is that, what's the period on that?
Is that a 2 month?
Is that a 2
That
month?
was 2 months.
Okay. Thank you. That answers that one. Bud Clary Chevrolet, $45,000. What's that for?
Purchased a vehicle
For,
for the new facility, for the facilities manager. He'll be tasked with maintaining all of our radio sites as well, since we have taken over those
okay,
responsibilities.
I vaguely recalled when we approved that we were gonna maybe try to find a good used vehicle. Is that what this is?
No,
It's like a used-
this is not a used vehicle. This is a new vehicle on the state contract.
I don't know that that's what we agreed to early on, but it's on here, going good.
Yeah, as I recall, we did. I know we were going to take a look at them. We also took a look at electric vehicles. We found that for the electric vehicles for a pickup to be able to haul equipment and such, they didn't have the horsepower necessary. So we went with the new vehicle.
All right, thank you. And then the last one is Patriot Construction. Why are we paying them anything? It's a rhetorical question, but you know, as I look at this payment for construction, and that's going to be ongoing because I understand there are still several issues outstanding. We have a continued lease agreement that we're looking to approve here later in the agenda for ongoing lease payments. We've got debt service payments that we're paying on the debt that we issued for this facility, and we're not even close to being in it. We're heading down a path of disaster from my perspective, from a financial.
Yes, we will be discussing
Sustainability.
that in the executive session today. Right.
Okay.
We'll address those issues.
Just some concerns.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Or reference that
That's all.
truck,
Thank
truck, is that something that you'd like to look back on the minutes?
Pardon me?
On the truck purchase, is that something we need to look back on? the
No,
minutes
no,
on?
I think we're good. I appreciate the explanation.
Okay. Are there any other questions for staff? Reference accounts payable. I'll note that Sam Brown from Plum Fire joined us. So
He's
Rachel
in.
saw him, so. He signed in. on-
James Graham has also joined via Zoom.
James Graham, and he's just, James Graham, he's the interim chief now at Cowlitz Fire District 2. So I don't know if James is functioning as a voting member today. Can you advise James? Since Alan's
I
not,
don't know what I'd be voting on yet. So, I suppose I am a voting member though.
okay,
And Chief Lamont is not here. Is there a voting member for small?
I don't know. Here's not, so you can.
I don't think James is the alternate for Cowlitz 2. He told me Marissa Hutchinson is the alternate for Cowlitz 2.
Okay, yep, I did see that email. So, okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not a voting member. I apologize. It is Marissa.
Well, we're glad to have you anyway, James.
All right, I'll just pay attention.
All right. All right, is there any further discussion on the payables? Okay, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve as presented.
I make a motion to approve payables as presented.
I'll second.
So Kurt Saha made the motion, Chief Jim Kelly seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I,
I'll also vote aye. So with item number 6, financial report for November 2022. And Rachel, do you want to make any comments reference to that?
The only comments I have are that won't see it reflected here, but we've received all of our sales tax now revenue through the end of December, and it came in at 3.1 million, and our excise taxes came in at 1.1. And then in the revenue section, it exceeds our revenue projections, mostly because the interest rates came in much higher this year than projected. And I think that's them just trying to lower inflation. So I don't know that they're going to stay so high in the coming years. Other than that, I don't have anything noteworthy unless you guys have questions.
Any questions for Rachel concerning the financial report? Okay, and we don't need to take any action on the financial report. Next up, we have item number 7, approval of a resolution to adopt the 2023 budget. John, did you address that?
Yeah, so we appreciate a handful of you and some of your staff joined us on the budget committee, and we appreciated their input and their help. We did have a good meeting where they had some good questions. We made some adjustments. We sent out the draft budget and had a few minor adjustments after that, but beyond that, it was agreed upon by the budget committee, and now it's here for your review, for your approval. Rachel, do you have anything to add to the 23 budget resolution?
Nope, there were no changes from what was previously presented at the last meeting. All I did was pop them into our financial system to make sure everything was in balance.
Thanks for your work on this, and I know that you sent out last week as well for review. So
I just gonna proceed with making the motion to approve the budget as presented, and also extend my thanks and appreciation to those who worked so hard in developing.
thank you. Do we have a motion?
I'll second. That was all part.
Okay, so Sam Brown seconded the motion. Is there any further discussion on approval of the 2023 budget? I hear none. All in favor, say aye. Also vote aye. That motion carries. The next item up is item number 9, a proposal to put out an RFP for IT services. Is that your order, baby, Deanne?
That's my baby. Okay, so the packet or the proposal was in your packet. I don't know if you have an opportunity to glance through that. This is something that we had discussed early on in this project about contracting outside with some managed IT support that will do a variety of things for us as far as like network support and desktop support and anything that kind of comes up as we go along, because it's a unventured territory for us a little bit with taking on the public safety network and the, all the stolen servers, and we've got redundancy and backup at both locations, so it's bigger than a one-man job.
And this is essentially replacing the services the county IT provided us to say.
Yeah, and actually us taking on things that we did, never did before.
Is there any questions of staff concerning putting out this request for proposals? The request for proposal?
So are you familiar with these, Deanna, in terms of other agencies that may have these types of agreements for IT services for their dispatch authority?
I can tell you of one that I am familiar with, which is Wahkiakum County, and I know that they contract out for IT support services. In the past, we've had our like CAD administrators that because that was kind of the only thing that we took care of at the 911 center. And so we've contracted out for CAD administration support services, which we also currently do today as well.
So in this, and I didn't look as closely perhaps, but in this proposal, are you seeking, obviously proposal from the private sector? Would you also accept those from the public sector?
I don't think there'd be any exclusion.
I mean, I don't know how many IT service providers there are out there with this type of expertise. That's why I'd asked the question. The other one that I had was, who's going to be part of the evaluation team from the proposals that we received?
I know internally, talking to John, it would be John and Dawn and myself. We haven't really talked, beyond that, but we do have AdCom that we currently contract with. But one of their subs probably will also be bidding on this, so I think that might be a little bit of, but I think, probably.
And like, for example, Clark County or Lewis County, they have their own in-house folks who do this.
Yeah, Clark County is supported by their county for everything except for maybe some of their separate applications, kind of like, we had with fire RMS servers and that kind of stuff. And Lewis County is also supported by their county.
What kind of term is this? A 3-year term? Did I say
It
3?
was
Yeah, 3-year with two-year renewals,
2 renewals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3-year term with two-year renewal options.
Something we can look at. I'm sure there's termination clauses in there too.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, I
look
think it
at
was literally like 30 days. Which this would become part of the agreement as well.
To expand on that, Mr. Saab, to your question, other 911 agencies across the state engage outside managed service providers. There's a lot of the 911 facilities that, as you know, the dollars are limited. And it requires, as technology has changed and expanded, several of them are reaching outside agencies for some of the infrastructure and things like that. So it's a common practice. At ICOM, I had an outside managed service provider for network infrastructure.
So you feel confident that we should see at least competitive proposals?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It won't just be
there are
one
a number-
firm or somebody coming up saying, here's the number.
Right. There are a number of companies out there that specialize in 911 now, as well, not one specifically, but municipalities, and government entities as managed service provider.
Okay,
It's like some small cities have been outsourced.
well, when Deanna told me about Wahkiakum County, I can understand that they're very small and I wouldn't compare them to, our authority.
Well, for example, where I was, like I said, at ICOM, I had an MSP, managed service provider for ICOM. The city of Oak Harbor, who also had an IT department of 2 or 3 people. They had a managed service provider for their infrastructure as well.
Okay,
It's a common practice in
okay.
government agencies.
Well, I mean, this is just the proposal. It'd be good to see what we receive.
once you get some responses, we'll come back to the board. And
Absolutely.
get recommendations. Jim?
Frank, have you had a chance to review this?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
So what kind of budget figures are you planning for this budget?
We have, Rachel, do you recall the
Do
budget
we
amount
want
we
to talk
put in?
about that here?
What's that?
Do we want to talk about that here?
Actually, yeah, probably not.
Same for executive session.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just be an idea, it's an additional budget item.
it is.
Should be close to what we're done for IT services from the county.
Yeah, we have added it into the 23 budget already. It was approved.
We have this contract in there, or
We have an amount.
an amount, yes,
Yes.
okay.
There is one correction that I came across, which Rachel will fix it, but we'd already sent the packet out. On page 5, 1.9. The section number that was highlighted there was the wrong number. So this-
Wrong phone number?
No, this section number where it says 1.12,
Oh, yeah,
it was supposed to be 1.11,
oh, okay.
but we'll fix that, we're aware of it.
Okay.
These two.
Is there any further discussion or questions of staff concerning this? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to proceed with the wish of the board.
So move.
Sammy Brown has moved to approve the RFP. Okay, and we have a second from Ruth, so. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Also an aye, that motion does carry. Next up is the lease agreement with the county. Is that you, John?
Yeah, so we have with, again, the unknown of the building and an actual completion date and a date for us to abandon this building and move in there. What we've opted to do with the county is a 1-year lease. And the reason for that is we didn't want to do a 3 months and then have to come back and then revisit it, et cetera. So we did a 1 year with a 60-day notification to get out of the lease. And, yeah, I think you were able to review this as well. So it is a 1-year lease with the county that is, as everyone understands, there's that 60-day clause we can put out with proper notice. Resume life on new building.
Just follow up to Dennis's from the last topic. It's broken down between rent and say IT services and janitorial services at all. Is there a breakdown of that? Or is it just one lump?
It is a lump sum. I believe originally there may have been a breakdown of what part was what, but I quite frankly don't recall that. Rachel, do you know that off the top of your head?
There was not. They've always billed us a lump sum for everything.
It might be tough to compare what we're paying IT.
Oh, I think we have this.
Well, I know the county, I know IT has a formula there, so I know that. So,
Yeah,
We've had discussions about it.
mhm.
Because there's this, do we transfer all the equipment? How do we value old equipment? All that stuff. So I think
Well,
after all, we just want to be fair.
well, I'd like it to be fair, and that's why I was gonna ask the question. I'm glad to hear that it provides for something other than just the lease of this facility. Because, you know, from my perspective, this facility has been fully amortized for about 20 years now. And I was going to question actually the increase. And maybe if you could, but, you know, before we move forward here, can you share a little bit of history here on, you know, what did we pay last year, year before? You know, this contract was it initially expired in 19, and then we kind of renewed it here for a couple of terms.
Yeah, the amount, and Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, the monthly amount is 14,750. Between 14,500 and 15.
Well, this one's 15,194 for next year.
Yeah, so there was not a substantial increase. It's less than $1,000 increase. For next year.
They did a 5% increase and they did a 5% increase the year prior as well.
Is there any further questions reference that?
Maybe discuss in that executive session, but is there a way to recoup these funds from Patriot since we could talk about that?
In the executive session.
Great
Good
question. Yeah. I'd recommend we approve this lease agreement as presented. And
You all set? Okay, we have a motion by Kurt Saha and a second by Jim Kelly. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll also vote aye. That motion does carry. Next up, we have board comments and board committee reports. And Fred Whitebill's and doing some training today. He did provide some minutes from a Law TAC meeting on December 7th that they held. They met, they were going over some RLOG status codes with dispatch. And it sounds like they need to work with that on fire as well. Discuss that, merging nature codes, some other law enforcement specific things concerning putting names and license plates on info screen. Talking about, I guess, delays and calls being dispatched, and also, I guess, there's a system lag latency issue that they discussed. And I know, is that something you want to talk about now?
It's an ongoing issue, and we're continually making changes to the infrastructure. Don's been doing work this week with his team of transitioning the Spillman server from legacy county network into our new virtual network. And it's a work in progress trying to address those latency issues, as well as some of the issues that we believe are on the Spillman side. We have a dedicated 2-person development team from Spillman Motorola that are focused on our specific issues, and we're working with them, providing logs on a regular basis so that they can dive deeper and find out why we're having some of these latency issues.
Okay. So some of the other things.
Brad,
Yes.
Marissa has joined, so she's now a voting member.
Okay. Yeah, there's Marissa Hutchison from Fire District 2. She's on the commission along with Helen Headley. So Helen's the primary on that. Okay. A couple other things from the Law TAC. Talked about working on CompStat. And can you explain what that is, Deanna? Also mentions Dawn on there. Is that a
Yeah,
crime analysis
actually,
thing? Or?
it's an application, but John, you might know more about it. I thought we already rolled that out, but
We've rolled out the dispatch side of it. I'm currently seeing it, using it. It's CompStat is a visual indicator that anyone can have. You can even put it on a kiosk type for the public to see. That they won't be able to interact with it heavily, but it's ideally for command staff, both law and fire, and with the ability to at a glance see real-time information as far as number of calls, highest priority calls, where your resources are, how much time they're spending doing specific activities, things like that. We have rolled it out technically from Spillman's terms. We are working through some training. I know a couple of law enforcement command staff have had a little bit of training on it, and we have more scheduled. Like I said, I've done the training for the dispatch side, where I can now see number of calls for service, number of radio log entries, which dispatchers are doing how much, what activities, things like that. So it's a work in progress that is coming along. And yeah, the reason it's mentioned there is because there's some follow-up training still to do with the law command staff.
Okay. Well, thanks. And then with the last item, we talked about net motion, some conversion being done to that. And that's essentially the wireless network, the laptops run on.
Right now, we're currently using it for a couple of in-house computers where we're having network connectivity issues, but firewalls are slowly being replaced and those issues are going away. We have had to increase our net motion licensing count, but I think we're leveled out now. But yeah, it's primarily the secure connection, that the security requirements to meet state requirements for connecting laptops in the field, cell phones for Spillman Touch back to the servers.
Okay. All right, I think that wraps up the items from the Law TAC. Is there any questions concerning those? Or? All right, then there would be the fire TAC report, and then there's the San Benito.
I was not in attendance at the last fire TAC meeting, and I have not been given any update.
Okay. All right, well, we'll move on from that then. Thank you. looks like the next item we have under that, actually, on the second page is item C, forming a user fee committee to review and finalize formula for user fees effective in 2024.
Yeah, so throughout 2023, we would like to revisit the user fee formula. As you may recall, there was an initial formula that expired, I believe, in 2019, and for the last few years, we have just had a generic 1.6% increase across the board. So we currently do not have a user fee formula that factors in anything other than just a generic increase. So we would like to revisit that, and we would like some input from the agencies, and similar to what we did with the budget committee, if the board is so inclined, and would like to have more input on that, we would welcome board members and or your staff to participate in that committee. We don't need an answer on that right now, but it is to address the user fee formula in the coming months.
I think we can revisit that after the first of the year.
Yes, yeah.
You know, the formula in the past, you factored in assess valuation, population, and calls for service, and you mixed them all together and came up with a magic formula to charge the users. So we just want to give time to revisit that.
It is, because we don't have one for 23. We're set already. It's budgeted, it's done. But for 24, we would like to revisit that. And the user fee formulas, I've been gathering data for the last few months from a lot of different 911 centers across the state, and even in Oregon. And the formulas are all over the place. It's in any number of factors.
I was just gonna add, if I could, that, being one of the users that pays the highest amount in fees for the service, and I understand why, based upon the old formula. I'd like you to, if you would, please, add Chris Swanson to the list. I'd like to make sure that she's a part of that.
Will do.
Thank you.
Didn't state 911 do a study a few years back on that issue, if I recall?
We did a financial study on not formulas, but for 911 centers statewide.
The funding mechanisms.
There's information on the military department E911 link where you can look at that study. It was for the legislators.
Is there any questions on that or wishes or people to put on that? You think about that and maybe bring that back to us next time around and some names and get that going after the first of the year.
Yeah, in January and even in February, we'd like to, or by February, we'd like to have that committee formed so we can get to work on it.
I only mentioned it, John, because I have a conflict in my schedule for January. So
Very good.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Well, good. We'll move into the director's report.
All right, thank you. For staffing, we currently have 18 dispatchers on the schedule. We have 4 in training. One of those trainees is currently on another leave. We have another dispatcher on leave as well. And we have one going on leave toward the end of the month. We have another that is retiring January 1st, 2023. We have another retiree on April 5th, 2023. And so the training. We currently have 8 non-represented staff. And speaking of non-represented staff, as in the past, as I understand it, their cost of living adjustment for 2020 for the new year has historically followed the guild, and we're asking for that. Or we're intend to do that same thing. It is in the 5% increase that the guild will be receiving in 2023 based on the collective bargaining agreement and the CPI from June 21 to June 22. Again, for a refresher, that number is closer to 9, but we have a bottom of 2 and a top of 5, minimum 2, maximum 5%. So of course, with the inflation and the CPI where it's at, that 5% is the standard. So we have that number calculated into the budget. So for non-represented staff, there will be 5% increase for 2023 as well. Climate and culture. Right now, it's a holiday mood.
Excuse me, John, how much is health insurance going up?
Our health insurance, Rachel, can you refresh my memory? I want to say it's about 11, but we have our contribution to that In the past, we were at 1550 and then for 22, we were at 1650. And for 23, we're at 1700. So our contribution is at 1700, and that doesn't fluctuate with the actual cost of insurance.
And they probably piggyback with the county for health plans.
That answer your questions. The holiday mood right now is good. Everyone loves the holidays. We hope everyone loves the holidays. Thanks to special thanks to Bree and to Shelley for ensuring that our dispatchers are taken care of for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. And they've done some decorating and provided some meals and some gifts and things. So we're happy with how that's gone and appreciate their work. They've really done a lot of extra work to make that happen. Regarding the facility, again, we'll talk about this, most of this in executive session, but for the first time since the project began, we actually had our OAC meeting. Every week we have an owner, architect, contractor meeting. We had it on site last week. The vice president of operations from Patriot from Maryland was in town, and we brought the architects down and we had the meeting on site. It was great to be able to walk around the building collectively as a group and see the issues, address the issues and things like that. That gentleman is Rick Winsek. He's the VP of operations. He has become more fully engaged in the project in the recent months. Had a great conversation with him yesterday on the phone. And the activities of his folks and the work that's being done. I will say that the leadership at Patriot, Rick was here 2 months ago as well, and he stated that he was disappointed in the lack of progress over the last 2 months. There has been progress, but there are just some things that have fallen through the cracks and gone by the wayside that haven't been focused on, and that effort has been readdressed, and we're seeing good progress. Last week and this week, I went and met with the project manager yesterday afternoon and this morning for just a paint walkthrough. And we looked at every painted surface in every room in the entirety of the building between yesterday afternoon and this morning. So they are focused on delivering a quality product and getting the work done. Right now, in fact, today they're striping the parking lot. Landscapers doing some paver work as well as setting stones in the back and things like that. So there's a flurry of activity this last weekend today.
Is that directly related to the fact that the VP was in town?
I believe it is.
He kicked some butt.
I believe it is. I believe it is, yes. I will give an example that they're all aware of. The superintendent on the project is to deliver daily reports of everything from what the weather was that day, how many subcontractors were on site, what they were doing, how many hours were worked by the subcontractors, et cetera. Until last month, we hadn't seen a daily report since October, I don't know the date, October 11th, I believe, of 2021. Those have started back up again. I wasn't aware of those. I read that somewhere deep in the spec somewhere that we were to get those, asked the question. Now we're getting those. One of the things that they check on there is if they had a safety meeting on site. That's a requirement. Apparently that hasn't happened. But somehow magically this morning at 9:30, there's a safety meeting on site with the contractor and all the subcontractors. So
we probably should stick with the details and executive session.
Okay. So yes, to your point, having their executive staff from Maryland involved has been a benefit. And then, so right now, as far as dates and such, Patriot has a stated substantial completion date of January 13th. We don't believe that'll happen. I believe February 13th is probably more realistic if I had to put my best guess on it. Deanna, what is your best guess? Tell you.
At least.
Are you thinking 23 or 24?
We're hoping 23.
It sounds more like 24, but
In
okay,
24, I'm gonna be gone.
I'd love it. Well, it doesn't matter. We still have a building
She keeps
to
saying
get
that.
done.
We should be careful on the topic.
All right. So we'll leave it at that for the building. Upcoming, let me see, we already talked about the user fee committee. Sheriff, I don't know if you want to discuss this more in January. I believe we'll have board member selections for chair and vice chair again. I believe that's an annual thing.
Yeah, we're accepting applications.
Next year is an actual rotation year, so there will be more than just the chair and vice chair being selected.
Can you send us a notice to those agencies that need to have reaffirmations of people appointed? Because I know they're.
I definitely can.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah, they're 2-year terms. I know coming up, I can tell you right here, but I'll also send it out. Longview Police is switching with Longview Fires. Last time they decided to keep fire on the board, so they have to switch out. There will be a commissioner needed to be appointed by the BOCC. The sheriff is just whoever the sheriff is. City council member is appointed by city council. The city manager is also appointed by the city council. Cowlitz 2 rep is appointed by the Cowlitz 2 Fire Commission Board. And then the Kelso city manager is appointed by the city council.
And what's the request process for a revision to that which you just mentioned? And I say that in terms of Longview Police. Our intent is to, because of some things happening internally within our organization, to leave Chief Cambites if he's willing as a representative for Longview Fire, Longview Police.
Frank, is there any specific thing we need to do to be able to do that? Because it's in our.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll look into it.
We'll review that and we'll get that out to the board.
Thank you.
With Longview's command staff and Stock Marion dispatchers.
Pardon me?
I said if your command staff at the police department stop marrying dispatchers, I mean, creates.
Well, okay. Oh, sure. Lay it on, Sheriff.
Move right along.
But to that point too, small fire and the small police agencies, do they need to select a new representative as well, Rachel?
They do, and it's by whatever boards those 2 are on. I can't remember the names of them.
Okay.
We'll get that full information out.
Thank you.
That's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Is there going to be a radio update?
He just missed it.
Oh, I did miss, I apologize.
That's okay. Yeah.
Deanna with radio update.
Okay. I have a meeting with Day Wireless today. We're gonna sit down and do a change order to the previous contract that we had with them to expand some of the work that needs to be done. I know that there's been some issues, especially West Longview area, and even like Washington Way with portable radios. So I contacted Day Wireless the other morning. They've been on that. They went out and realigned the microwave at Rainier for the links, and they'll be doing the same at Columbia Heights today. And with that Mount Solo site, it's created kind of a bottleneck out there. And so we had it shut off because as we have a lot of traffic, it creates issues where the packets aren't going through. And really the overall solution for it is going to IP, which is the transition that we're going to with those microwaves, but it's just going to take some time. Deer Island, I had a couple conversations over the last month with Bob Gray, who's our point of contact for that site. They are currently out, I think they're doing it in the next 2 weeks, replacing the floor out there. And once they get that done, then we'll be able to take occupancy of it. There had to be a tower study and some other things done that we're just waiting on that information to come back. And that's about all I have, if you have any questions.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
There's a couple other things on something like the Open Public Meeting Act training for board members.
Yes, when we, there is a 2-year requirement for the OPMA certification that you've reviewed the training, so. We need everyone to do that, that is in need of that.
So something Rachel can send out here, like an online thing. that you can do.
There is, yeah.
She could send that out to us. And then the updated agreement with Calvert's 2 Fire and Rescue.
Yes, so we just made some edits to the existing agreement. Minor cleanup of who's doing what and how, but we'll be continuing that, and we have that in the budget for 2023. And we'll address it again before the 24 budget.
And that's for the service they provide for payroll and some budget supports.
Yes.
Is there any questions for John or Deanna or staff on any of those issues? All right, here, now we'll move along. One thing I was not on the agenda, I did going through the minutes, sent out from yesterday on Pulse Point, fire presented on that about 2 months ago. Eric Reese, Longview Fire, and I think Sammy's spoken to that as well. I know a short notice, I think folks have had a chance to look at the Pulse Point and what it provides. If you've heard to discuss that today or not, but
Yeah, I downloaded it. I downloaded it because Clark County is a Pulse Point county. So I get alerts on the phone. It's a pretty simple app.
except the fire district that serves you as well. Are they
Yes.
part of that?
Yeah.
You find it to be really helpful in situations?
Well, it lets you know, it lets you know all the fire calls. So, you know, and I'll let you look at it if you want to take a look. What did I do with it? That is.
Yeah, it looked impressive. I just,
Yeah,
the review, I didn't.
The app comes from Cressa. So Cressa will provide fire calls, medical calls, any local emergencies. So it's actually pretty good. I know there's a couple of the guys in the PB that have this on their phone. So
And that's available to the general public.
yeah,
Can get that.
yeah, absolutely. It was a free. It took just a couple of seconds to download it. And, yeah, just tell them where you're at, and it locates whatever Pulse Point provider. You know, so if we decide to move in that direction, we'll be in Pulse Point contact, and I'll just have to change it in my phone.
And there's obviously thresholds of information based upon, you know, if you're just a citizen at large or first responder.
And it can be tailored to the information you want to put out. I know the big push is for Sunday cardiac event for people who shoot dart trained or locations of the AEDs and that. So
Yeah,
I don't know what the local intent was.
That is it. The primary benefit is to be notified of a cardiac arrest in your area. So everyone who's part of it would be notified of cardiac arrest in their area, where the nearest them is. For example, Eric put out, I believe it was in a Home Depot, a big building. He didn't realize there was a cardiac arrest inside that building, left and could have, you know, helped out if he had that.
Can I ask a question? On the AEDs, who tracks that? Does an individual have to put that information in, or is the expectation that the provider?
When you purchase the AEDs, whether it's a public agency or private company, you register, and then they get the information from those.
You registered Pulse Point?
I
Because
think
some,
it's more than, I think it may be the American Heart Association that you're registering to, but it's gonna get to Pulse Point, yeah,
but the 911 center wouldn't have to manage that, correct?
I believe.
Because we have people contact us sometimes with those and say like, hey, and we don't put them in anything. I mean, we don't keep a record of those because you'd have to go verify that.
Yeah, you would not have to.
I get those emails from a paper company whenever they deploy one, they say, hey, we've sold one to these people here.
Yeah.
And when Chief Kelly mentioned that it's free, the app is free for the public user to download, but there is the startup cost. And then there's an ongoing annual maintenance that we've discussed previously.
So that was the main request, is that the Calhoun County EMS and Trauma Care Council would pay for the initial startups, and then the annual fee we're requesting that public authority number one. Those fees.
Do you recall what those numbers were?
It's pretty good asset. I think it was, I think it was $10,000 a year.
Yeah, the startup's 10,000 a year and the annual maintenance is just under 10,000. I think it's 8,900 or 9,100 or something like that.
That's it.
For now, of course, yeah.
And that's just for the base plan. That's not with all the business bells.
Correct.
Do you see issues on your end that could be tied into the dispatch system to get this information? Is that kind of a seamless?
Yeah, it taps into the server through an API that still Motorola provides, and we already have other things like Image Trend and Logic and things like that to tap into that same API. That's not an issue for us. Again, I would just caution this may be watching out for our budget. It's not something that Calais 911 typically cover the cost of on an ongoing basis. But just so the board is aware, if they choose to allow that cost, that cost has to be covered somewhere. I mean, right now, it's not, in this budget year, it's not a problem. But if we have something like this, and then, next year somebody wants another application and ongoing, then we can't cover that cost with 911 dollars, so it would have to be user fees. I would just caution against adding too many things to that, but that's my budgetary caution. But the product itself is a very worthwhile, very well vetted, well-used product that I think is worthwhile to have. And I'm comfortable adding that.
Just a quick answer, the question about whether fire can be part of law TAC. I looked at our, if I understand the question correctly, I looked at our bylaws, and the bylaws limit a law TAC to folks that are in law enforcement plus Calais 911. But that would only be important if there was a close vote, but it's an advisory committee, so I'm not sure anything bad would happen if fire was involved for a while.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Wonder if anybody has a burning desire to move forward with Pulse Point today. Maybe could we put that, maybe have Rachel put that on the agenda for January, and maybe Sammy and you can work with Eric on that.
Yeah.
Point on that and be prepared in January to come back with some hard numbers for us to look at and decide if we want to move forward. What I saw and looked at, it looked like a great program. At least the intention's good to get help to people right away. All right. Other than that, is ask if there's anything for the good of the order. Otherwise, we'll go into executive session. So I'm gonna guess, should we say about half an hour, right?
Yep, I always guess wrong, so if you want to go with a half an hour. The reason for this is twofold. It is a performance of a public employee, RCW 4231.1G, as well as discussion with legal counsel about legal risks of current or proposed action, which is 4231.10.1. And 30 minutes.
Well, let's start with 20.
Okay,
Just in case.
it's always, it's a lot easier to extend it than to sit there and fully
Yep.
confirm for 10 minutes.
Eat donuts or something.
I do have that total contract at 11:30. So.
Okay, well, we'll get going. So
All right, so Rachel's putting this into a separate room here for the executive session.
Oh, 911.
Frank, can you just announce when you'll be returning?
about 11:10, is that?
11:10.
Did you hear that? 11:10.
All right, here we go.
You guys are still muted.
There we go. Can you hear us now?
I can.
Okay, we're out of executive session and no action was taken in executive session. And moving forward, John's been with us for 8 months now. He's due a step increase with successful reviews at the 6-month point, and we're going to retroactively do that. And I'll be moving forward with the formal evaluation of you. And that's one thing I did not pass out. I meant to do that to the board, but and I'll leave it open for maybe the next week. If anybody has any input as to John's performance, want to add that to his written evaluation. Overall, the discussion is satisfied with performance and direction we're headed, and we'll do that. But let's see, pass these out here. I can send these to Marissa and Andy as well. These are people over this way. These are board expectations that we had for the executive director that were put together back in June of 2021. I think they're still relevant. So if you guys want to take a look at those, and if you have anything offline you want to share with me concerning the evaluation of John, we'll go ahead and we'll get that put in writing here in the next couple of weeks and move forward.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate your confidence, and I'll continue to do my best for the board.
Other than that, is there anything for the good of the order? All right. Hearing none, we'll stand adjourned until some point in January.
Third Wednesday in January.
All right.